All right, so my name is Elizabeth Torrance. I am the Operations Manager for the Virginia Procurement Technical Assistance Program, and I'd like to welcome everyone to attending this webinar. It's going to go for, I'd say, about 35 minutes plus question and answer time. And if you have any questions during the discussion, feel free to type them in the chat window. You can send them directly to me, or you can put them out there to the whole group, and we will get to them as we can. And if you did not indicate your name on the when you logged into GoToMeeting, please send me a message to let me know your full name so that I can record your attendance for the event. So the Virginia Procurement Technical Assistance Program is a program that is dedicated to helping business do business with government. We are funded by George Mason University and the Defense Logistics Agency, and we offer free counseling services to businesses in our region. So if you're a Virginia-based business, you're welcome to sign up as a client. And if you're not in Virginia, you're welcome to attend any of our events, classes, and you can find your local Procurement Technical Assistance Center on the national website, which is aptac-us.org. That's the Association of Procurement Technical Assistance Centers-US, because we're in the United States.org. But our website is Virginia PTAP, Procurement Technical Assistance Program.org. And I'd like to welcome Tom Skypick. He is the co-founder and CEO of GovBizConnect, and he's going to talk to us today a little bit about government contractor teaming. So I'd like to go ahead and allow you to start, Tom.
Excellent. Thanks, Elizabeth. First, I'd like to thank Elizabeth and the Virginia PTAP for working with us to host this webinar today, and thanks to all of you for joining us today for the discussion. As Elizabeth indicated, I'll walk through the presentation for about 30-35 minutes and make sure that we leave plenty of time for Q&A. If you have any questions during the talk, go ahead and submit those or ask those, and we can address those as they come up. So just a little bit of background on myself. As Elizabeth mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of GovBizConnect, which is an online professional network for government contractors and government contracting officers to find teaming opportunities and contract opportunities. But before I founded GovBizConnect, I worked for a couple of the large government contracting firms, Booz Allen Hamilton and SAIC. And at Booz Allen SAIC, I worked in a program management and business development capacity as a capture manager, proposal manager, working business development for Department of Defense, Department of State, Department of Energy. I've also written on a number of topics from business strategy, contract management to national security. And I will be your presenter. So what I wanted to do is focus today's discussion on this central question, which, if you step back and think about how you grow your federal contracting business, is contractor teaming an Achilles heel, or is it a competitive advantage for your firm? And when I say Achilles heel, what I mean by that is does it always feel like it's kind of a last-minute run around to find the right teaming partner? Is it a bit of an afterthought? Do you often have lots of risks associated with your teaming work, either when you're putting the proposal together, submitting it, or even contract delivery? Or do you and your leadership really see it as something that differentiates you in the marketplace, that you have this impressive portfolio of teaming partners that you continuously build, and that's matched to the markets that you want to be in? So as we walk through the discussion today, I just want to keep this question sort of front and center as we proceed. So just the key points really of today's talk are that contractor teaming really is often an afterthought for federal business development professionals. And the problem with this is it creates a lot of ineffective teaming relationships, of which there are a number of fairly negative consequences, which we'll talk about in a little more detail as we go. But really, our thesis is that teaming really needs to be thought of as part of your firm's overall business strategy. So when you're thinking about which markets are we going to compete in and how are we going to compete in, it's helpful to think of teaming as part of that question set, right? So this will help prevent it from being that 11th hour exercise where you're scrambling. But if you think about it up front, and then also if you think about teaming partners as strategic allies who can help grow your business, again, that's really a paradigm shift from I'm looking for a partner who can help us check the box to win this proposal to a fruitful business relationship that can help you really grow and expand. So I wanted to just share a short story here. Everybody knows Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and interesting story about partnerships here. So when Steve Jobs came back to Apple in the summer of 1997, the company that he co-founded was just 90 days from bankruptcy. And of course, Apple's turnaround is arguably one of the greatest comebacks in American business history. Everybody's very familiar with Jobs' vision of the future and his great product evangelism and ability to tell a story. But what's very interesting and kind of underreported is that it was really a business partnership that provided the lifeline to Apple in 1997 when the company was just 3 months from running out of cash. So Apple and Microsoft, they'd been fierce competitors for 2 decades in the world of personal computing. But at the 1997 Macworld Expo, Jobs, standing under a screen with the words "Meaningful Partners," announced a new partnership with Microsoft. And that partnership included a patent cross-license, an agreement for Internet Explorer to be the default browser on Apple products, the development of Microsoft Office for the Macintosh, and a $150 million investment in Apple. So $150 million in Apple when they're 3 months from bankruptcy. So Apple purists and loyalists, they greeted this with boos, but the reality is this deal was a stroke of genius because it helped lay the foundation for Apple's turnaround and their game-changing products that would eventually come, from the iPod and iTunes to the ubiquitous iPhone. So I wanted to share this story because here we have these two titans of business, but they needed each other. They needed this partnership. Jobs arguably needed it more than Bill Gates, but it ended up being a mutually beneficial partnership. And it really underscores the importance of thinking about teaming as a dimension of one's business strategy. The federal business development professional, as you know, really has a lot on their plate. They have a lot of questions they need to deliberately think through. They have a lot of moving pieces in their company, from the folks that handle the pricing and those that come together to figure out whether they're going to bid on a piece of work. So, the question of, do you pursue a piece of work? If you do, how are you going to build a competitive proposal? How do you price competitively, and who do you staff it with? Now, these are important questions that are really on the minds of the capture manager. But again, there's one question that really, given how important it is and how complex it is in execution, receives far too little attention, and that's, what's our teaming strategy? How does it fit into our broader business development pursuits, the markets that we're aligned to that we want to see grow? Are we finding and building relationships with partners that can help us grow in those specific spaces? So a lot to juggle for the federal business development professional, but teaming, again, needs to be something that's on the forefront of their mind, and not something that surfaces once the proposal hits. So essentially, where we are right now in the government contracting market, there is a major imperative to team, especially when we think about the trend of small business set-asides. So roughly a quarter of all contracting dollars were awarded to small business in 2014, and then in 2015, for the second year in a row, Uncle Sam hit its contracting goal again for small business. So what this means is it creates a teaming imperative, an imperative for large businesses to find good, qualified small businesses so that they're not shut out of certain contracts and that they can keep a presence in certain markets. And for small businesses, it encourages them to build a network of larger businesses who can help them win and execute the work, and also position them for additional opportunities. So there's a structural piece here of how the market has evolved with the earmarking of a quarter of these dollars for small business. And now the motivations and incentives are different whether you're a small business or a large, but there is an imperative there that's created by this structural factor. Just to make sure we're all on the same sheet of music, I just wanted to do a quick rundown on some terms and concepts since we're talking about teaming. So essentially when we say teaming, it's really when two or more companies partner to bid and perform work on a government contract. And there's really three types of vehicles that are used to form these partnerships, and that's a teaming agreement, which is usually always codified in a subcontract. And then you have joint ventures and partnerships, and that's when two or more companies come together to form a new legal entity to act as a prime contractor. And then whether you choose a joint venture or partnership, it depends on your appetite for risk and which organization is most appropriate given your situation. But what's most common are teaming agreements that are crafted and then evolve into subcontracts. And this is a typical deal progression for a teaming agreement to a subcontract. Ordinarily, you'll sign a non-disclosure agreement to protect yourself and your intellectual property, trade secrets, and identify the scope of what it is you want to talk about. The teaming agreement is really a precursor to the formal contract, and it should really be considered the first major opportunity to negotiate the terms of the deal. Generally speaking, it's most advantageous for both parties to negotiate the terms that they want to appear in the subcontract itself and make sure that those are included in the teaming agreement. The more that happens, the more you're able to sort of reduce that risk during subcontract negotiations. Of course, this is all a matter of perspective, whether you're a small business or a large business. But the specific negotiating strategy really depends on whether you're looking at the deal from the perspective of a prime contractor or a prospective subcontractor. Subcontractors are really going to seek to include specific terms related to work share in the teaming agreement, so that is more easily built into the subcontract. Prospective subcontractors do this to ensure that they're not shortchanged, which is something we see happen, and I'm sure we've all heard war stories about that. One company will bring you on basically to check the box, and you don't end up getting any work out of that. So that's proper use of the teaming agreement can significantly reduce that risk. When you look at this from the prime's perspective, the prime contractor generally is going to seek to keep work share terms more vague so that they're retaining to insource the work or even contract it out to another supplier. Prime contractors generally are going to seek to include stricter exclusivity for non-competition terms than the subcontractor would like. One of my sort of points here, especially for small businesses, is to remember to be specific, especially around work share in the teaming agreement. The more you can be specific about how many staff you're going to have on the deal, what tasks you're going to perform in the deal, the better. Vague agreements for the small business are not good and really set up a lot of risk, so that when it does come time to iron out the subcontract, you're in a weaker position. So that's one piece of advice I would offer to any small businesses is reduce ambiguity to the extent you can and be as specific as you can when it comes to work share. That's very important. So companies team for a host of reasons, as we discussed. And again, it depends on whether you're a small business or large business, but a small business is generally going to team for a few different reasons. One could be to augment their in-house capabilities so that their technical proposal becomes stronger. So all that means is if there's a subject matter expert that you need to acquire, or a team of subject matter experts and you don't have them in-house, you may look to partner. Another common reason is to build your small business brand by partnering with an established brand. So there's a lot of companies out there in the government contracting market that have a great brand name, lots of cachet in the market. So partnering with them, if you're a small firm, can really be helpful in terms of building your own brand and opening up the door for opportunities, not just in your initial teaming partnership with them, but also repeat business if you're able to build a strong partnership. And another important reason for small businesses is so that they're able to gain experience as a subcontractor to prepare for future opportunities as a prime. So it's building those qualifications to set yourself up for larger, complex, and prime contracts. Now, on the large business side, there's some of the reasons are the same, some are a little different. So large business, it enables them partnering with a small business to be able to bid on contracts that are set aside for small businesses as a teammate or a subcontractor. Similarly, large businesses, they generally have a deeper bench and subject matter experts, but lots of times they have to look outside, and they may need to partner to do that. Sometimes the large businesses will look at a partnership as a way to become more cost competitive in a bid, thinking that the small business has lower overhead and that they're able to make the deal more profitable. And also to be able to be more competitive in a bid where socioeconomic status is a weighted evaluation factor. Bringing in a team member with the capabilities but the right certifications and government criteria can also be very, very helpful. So we'll start with the good here, which is great teaming relationships. So the right teaming relationship can do a lot for one's business. It can help you consistently grow your sales, build your business, increase market share, and really can help to differentiate your brand. If you have a portfolio, as I said earlier, of great companies where you have a strong and fruitful business relationship, that's very, very powerful, not just in your current portfolio of work, but also as you look towards your sales pipeline and you think about how you may be able to leverage those teaming partners. It also helps companies, especially the small ones, as we just mentioned, prepare to be a prime contractor or take on more complex contracts. Great teaming relationships can also improve customer satisfaction. Unfortunately, I've seen a number of instances where you have pretty dysfunctional teaming relationships, and so the delivery doesn't go well, and the government customer sees this, right? It's not too hard to see when you have a dysfunctional team. And this frequently happens when you have teaming relationships that are 11th hour arranged marriages that come to pass during a proposal deadline, which sometimes does happen. So having a good quality team at the table, you're likely to improve customer satisfaction, which obviously has strong implications for growing your business with that customer through the exercising of option years or just other opportunities. And lastly, good teams are much more likely to deliver on the contract and project outcomes that they were contracted to deliver. Again, dysfunctional teams lots of times do not deliver. And so if you have a great team, it sets you up not only to grow your business, but to make your customers happier and then deliver on time within budget. Now the bad. So as much as there's terrific benefits for great teaming relationships, the bad can be pretty rough. It can result in a loss of current and future revenue. Let's say, for example, that you have a contract and things are so bad the option year maybe doesn't get exercised right. But then also, if it goes bad enough, you could have damaged your reputation pretty significantly in that market, and winning work in that space may not be possible going forward. So this could result in a situation where you have decreased market share and have sustained pretty significant reputational damage to your brand, which is very hard to rebuild. Now, if brand is all about trust and loyalty, a bad teaming relationship is very, very poisonous to that. And as we talked about in the previous slide, great teams can deliver on the work that they propose, but bad teams often have serious morale problems, and there's lots of finger pointing and blame going around, and that's another symptom of a dysfunctional teaming relationship, and unfortunately we see that pretty often. So when you're thinking about what makes a good teaming relationship, or how should you think about it, there's really 4 ingredients that are involved when you're thinking about a partner. And that's, the first one is strategy. Does it align with your business strategy? So ideally, one of these strategic partnerships is really supposed to make you more competitive in your target market and build your brand and reputation. So you really need to be sure that you're entering into teaming relationships that make you a stronger competitor. And really avoid entering into partnerships that are outside of your target market. This is where it really helps to think strategically about this and the markets you want to be in, where you want to grow your business, and how. So basically the relationship has to be in alignment with your strategy. Second are capabilities. So when you're looking for partners, you really need to focus on the capabilities that they bring to the relationship. They should bring some sort of unique experience or skills. You want highly qualified staff and proven processes and tools for solving customer problems. This is where you really need to be discerning. There's a lot of companies look really great on paper, right? You can say you can do X, Y, and Z, but you really need to probe and make sure that they've demonstrated these capabilities in the marketplace, or if not, get some validation that they do have these and can deliver, because that's another thing we see quite regularly is folks will embellish slightly their capabilities, and that leads us into our next piece too, and that's due diligence. Really need to do the proper legal, financial, and operational, and even reputational due diligence. Learn about the company. There's lots of great free resources to get research on companies now. Ask them questions, and really make sure that in those areas they're a company that you'd be proud to be teamed with. And the last one here is arguably the hardest and the most important. Culture. It sounds very squishy, but it really is incredibly important. Large companies and small companies generally have very, very different cultures, and some of that is just an organizational dynamic of as the company gets bigger and scales, it gets larger, its processes often become more complicated, but a lot of it is its leadership too. So a teaming partner could be a really great fit on paper. You could be looking, wow, they're in the markets we want to be in, they've got the capabilities they want, but as you do a deeper dive, you might see that organizationally and culturally there's some differences that could be a serious problem during contract delivery. So you really need to think about these 4 areas as unbiased as you can, because to have a really fruitful partnership, you really need these 4 areas to check out and be validated. And again, the most difficult one is that culture piece. It's difficult to assess that fit, but again, that's really on the leadership to make sure that they're talking with the executives at their prospective teaming partner, and that they're asking the questions and doing what they can to not build a superficial relationship, but a real partnership. So one of the things here, if you're looking to maybe do a refresh on your teaming strategy or just start from scratch, I want to walk through kind of a strategy session, how you could structure this with your leadership team as you think about contractor teaming. So one of the things I would do is set up a 4-hour block of time with your core business development team for a hands-on working session. So everyone's going to have this time blocked off. So you want your core business development team there too, But I would also encourage you to invite members of your staff who interact with your customers most frequently, even if they're junior, right? So I'd say seniority doesn't matter as much here. You want all perspectives at the table. So certainly invite the best and the brightest of your client-facing staff, and you will be glad that you did, because you really do want the perspective of the staff who are in the trenches working with your clients on a daily basis. They have the best window into the client's current and future needs. So you really need to make sure that's represented, and that it's not an ivory tower exercise. And again, what I mean by that is the executives at the home office just doing this in a vacuum. You definitely want that perspective of folks who are talking with the client. So set up that 4-hour block of time, and then ask each team member to identify a specific problem with the company's existing approach to teaming and their proposed solution. That's really important. So we want people coming to the table with a problem, but also with a solution, how they would solve it. And then at the session, what you want to do is you want to review your business strategy. So you want to talk about where you are competing in the marketplace, which specific markets are you interested in growing, and how are you competing there? What's your plan for growing? Is there a specific contract set in that marketplace that you're looking to win and build over the next 12 to 24 months? And what's your value proposition and your key differentiators? And there's so many contractors out there that have, on paper, very similar skill sets and capabilities. So that's another important point, is to be revisiting your value proposition and understanding and making sure that everyone knows what that is and how you differentiate yourself to your customers. And the next thing you would want to do is then you want to take a look at your sales pipeline, and you need to think about which federal departments and agencies are your top prospects for driving top-line growth, and which contracts have the greatest potential return on investment. And of those contracts, where do you have the greatest probability of winning? So this is really trying to force you away from that shotgun approach to business development where you're bidding on everything under the sun, right? You want to be really focused. I mean, good business strategy, good strategy in general is about focus. So it's really trying to identify at a specific level the departments and agencies and then the contract pipeline and where you think your probability is the greatest. And then you want your team to think about how can the company, given the questions that we just walked through, really use teaming to maximize the probability of winning those contracts that will provide the greatest ROI for the company. So this is where it really forces us to think about teaming at a strategic level. We're talking about which markets we want to be in, which contract vehicles we think are the greatest mechanisms to help us drive that growth. But now we're asking, how do we use teaming to get there? How do we use teaming to grow the top line, but also make sure that it's good, profitable growth? So if we walk through these questions and you walk through these questions with your team, it'll really help you to focus your resources on building partnerships that are clearly aligned to your business strategy. And again, what we're trying to do here is separate ourselves from that paradigm that teaming can be the 25th item on the list and we'll get to it, and this really forces you to think about teaming in a strategic context. So I want to talk briefly about some of the inefficiencies of the current system. There's a couple of factors here, and one of them is the universe of potential teaming partners is massive, right? So 1 million plus small businesses are registered with SAM to be able to compete for federal contracts. And we talked with the Library of Congress, and they indicated that in 2014, 180,000 businesses received contract money from the U.S. government, and of that figure, about 50,000 were small businesses. So then you step back and you think about that for a while. You've got a million potential companies that are going to compete for work, but 180,000 receive contract money. That's an incredible universe of potential teaming partners, but it's really difficult for one individual to have insight to that number of companies. It just is. Even if you're a terrific networker, you do all the industry luncheons, that's just a massive universe. And the other challenge is some of the mechanisms we have are good, and they need to be part of our toolkit as we think about building team partners, but it doesn't always enable us to have visibility into that massive set of contractors. So right now we've got individual professional networks like LinkedIn, which is becoming very helpful for a lot of people, but again, just doesn't provide you that glimpse. Sometimes companies will have databases of the organizations that they worked with previously. Obviously, in-person networking is important, so seminars, industry luncheons, that type of thing. But when you think about that, if you go to an industry luncheon, you spend a day there, you meet 10, 15, if you're good, 20, 30 people, somewhat random. You might get their cards. And that's not always the most efficient way to go about this, because you're losing the time of being there, and it can be pretty untargeted. You meet some fine, interesting people, but it might not have that focus that you would like, and it costs a decent amount of money for some of these events to attend. So those costs add up, especially when you multiply them over your business development force. What else we see a lot of is the repurposing of existing partnerships, which is great if you have a fruitful partnership that can be repurposed, but a lot of times that's not the case, and you end up trying to force this, which is not helpful. And then in times of desperation, you might be doing the Google search looking for a specific company that has a specific skill set or government certifications that you're looking for. So the way GovBizConnect, we kind of think about this in two pieces, right? We think about teaming 1.0 and teaming 2.0. Now, a lot of the pieces that are in part of 1.0 will remain. They're critical. For instance, in-person networking is incredibly important. That will never go away. The rapport and trust that you're able to build by looking someone in the eye, shaking their hands, is incredibly important. But it doesn't solve that problem of the massive universe of potential teaming partners that you may be leaving on the table. So a few of the dimensions we see in teaming 2.0 is a much more collaborative approach to teaming, where it's focused more on business to business and business to government professional networks. LinkedIn, as much as it is a professional networking site, is very much person to person, right? So it's not a business to business network. And the biggest piece here is the targeted search. We would like to see you be able to search and sift and filter through that 180,000 companies to find the best teaming partner for your specific needs. So I just want to talk briefly about GovBizConnect. So GovBizConnect is a free online professional network for government contracting professionals. So users, both government contractors from small and large companies and government employees, build tailored profiles with the goal of identifying teaming opportunities and contracting opportunities based on capabilities, criteria, past performance, and other factors. So we launched GovBizConnect here back in August, and we've got about 150 users signed up to date, and these include small and large government contractors, and we've got government contractors, contracting officers from a number of departments and agencies signed up, which is great, and we're starting to see some really terrific engagement. Just a quick rundown on some of our features. We've got 40 plus data fields depending on which profile you're looking to build. We have fully indexed profiles, which means that you're going to be able to search the profiles that you need to search and find. We have a responsive mobile-friendly design, so that means you're able to view it on your mobile device, and private messaging to be able to connect. So a few of the benefits of being on GovBizConnect is increased probability of winning contracts, because you have a higher probability of finding the teaming partners you need. Another benefit is that you're going to be maximizing the return on investment of your business development dollars. As I mentioned earlier, going to the luncheons and the industry days, a lot of those are important and need to be part of your toolkit for finding in building teaming relationships, but a lot of them probably can be removed. So this will help you kind of maximize that return on investment. The other thing we're looking at is faster and targeted formation of partnerships. Again, that search capability. And all this trickles down to having an improved quality of contract delivery and execution for the government customers, which again, happy customers sets you up for more work, helps you grow your business. And lastly, really is increased value for the taxpayer, because when a contract's issued and what the taxpayer finances isn't delivered, the taxpayer didn't get what they paid for. But if we have more stronger, fruitful teaming relationships, we can make sure the taxpayer is getting the value for what they're financing. So GovBiz Connect's really a tool where you can build great partnerships and help grow your business. So I'd encourage everyone to sign up today. It's free. We want your feedback as we think about subsequent iterations of this, features, functions, and shoot me an email. But that's what we have for our formal presentation. So I think we can go ahead now and open it up for questions.
Zahra had a question, and I'm going to actually unmute Zahra just because I'm not sure if I understand the full context. She said the task is to only write a proposal. Shall it be done via contractor or teaming agreement? So the question is really geared at you're trying to accomplish writing a proposal, and you're thinking about teaming with another company to accomplish that end?
I don't know if you can hear me or not. But
yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. The question is that if I just want to write proposal, for example, it's going to take me a week or so to write a proposal. This one can be done for me to write a kind of the contract between me and my buyer for my services. But if I just want to go on a longer term, just administer the contract after winning, then that be a teaming agreement. Am I correct here, or shall I just sign a teaming agreement from very beginning with a few different companies, and as it comes to the proposal, because I am very small business, just like a one-person business. So at what level shall I go in a teaming agreement, and at what level shall I go just having a contract for performing a task or doing a job?
Sure. Well, so a couple points I would make is, I mean, it goes back to sort of your tolerance for risk and protecting your company. So I would say, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've been around this enough, but I'll just give you my 2 cents, is that if you're working with someone, you certainly want that codified somewhere. So a teaming agreement is a good way to do that, but also a subcontract. So again, I think that way you have traceability, and should things not work out as you like, there's a paper trail. Plus, I think it eliminates the risk of ambiguity in what's supposed to be delivered to whom, when, and at what price, that type of thing. So I think it's a judgment call on your part, and it really gets to a risk tolerance piece. But again, I think it's a vehicle to build relationships and grow that business. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
Oh, sorry, unmute again. Did that answer your question? Okay, great. So before we go into any other questions, if there are any, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned a couple things before people drop off. First, the presentation that we just listened to will be available on the eCenter where you signed up to attend the class. So the username and password that you received in the email confirmation, or you can retrieve the password under the client login section of our website, will allow you to log in. Click on the class. If you go down to the bottom of that class description, the attachment will be right there. Second thing I wanted to mention is that we will actually have a successful teaming agreements and subcontracts class taught this week on Thursday by Ken Brody. He is a longtime instructor with Virginia PTAP and teaches this class on about a quarterly basis. So if you're interested in the more technical legal aspects of teaming agreements, rather than just the overview of strategic value, I'd encourage you to take a look at that class and consider attending. Do we have any other questions from the group? I'm not seeing any typed in. Tom, is there any other things that you would like to know?
Yeah, so yeah, just one final point, and I think that's about the class you have coming up. So yeah, I focused a lot today on sort of the business strategy and sort of the softer pieces, which are incredibly important and should drive the whole discussion. But the course that Elizabeth mentioned is coming up this week. That's really important too. I mean, if you're a small business owner, you don't need to be a lawyer, but you need to be conversant in more of the technical details of how to execute and build these out. So let me just run back to this slide here. This process here. So this is where you kind of need that more robust legal contractual understanding of when do I sign a non-disclosure agreement, what does it look like, and again, how do you build out and negotiate a teaming agreement, and then how is it codified in a subcontract. All those are incredibly important. So it's really marrying up and building that knowledge set in the business strategy piece of how do I think about my market and how do I advance my business through it, but also from the contractual and legal standpoint of how do I build these specific documents and execute those to minimize risk. So I definitely would encourage folks to sign up for that that presentation as well.
Yeah, it's one of the core classes that we normally recommend to people new at government contracting. Even if you're not new, it's still valuable because everyone brings their own knowledge and background in government contracting, whether they were a former contracting officer or otherwise. And sometimes it's useful to just be exposed to a different perspective and know what's out there that you need to study up on. We have another question from Zara. What to look for in an NDA and a TA?
Sure. So in a non-disclosure agreement, what you really want to talk about is the scope of what you're going to discuss with this specific company, right? So you want to have make sure that you have clauses in that protect your intellectual property, your trade secrets, and just outline how you're going to basically have that conversation. That's what the NDA does. It protects you, enables you to speak freely on a specific area that you will define in that non-disclosure agreement. And once that is signed by both parties, it enables you to have a more substantive dialogue, which then the output of that dialogue will be your teaming agreement. And that's where you really want to talk about work share. So when I say work share, it's really how much work and what kind of work are you going to get from this contract deal. So that's one of the real important pieces of the teaming agreement, especially for the small business. You really want to be specific about what you're getting. So for example, I'll just use the example of a professional services contract. And let's say the contract, there's 10 staff that need to be filled. In the teaming agreement, you need to be going to the table to that large business and saying, we want 4 of those staff, and we want these 4 because we can do X, Y, and Z, and we offer unique capabilities here. What you don't want to say is, yeah, we want some staff, and we'll figure it out in the subcontract. You want to start to talk specifically. So the non-disclosure agreement, again, is just identifying the parameters of the dialogue that you're going to have so that you can protect your intellectual property and trade secrets. Then you have more substantial conversations, which output is the teaming agreement, and that again is the precursor for the subcontract where it's codified.
Can I ask another question,
Sure.
please? Is it a payment? How the payment is going to be done? Is anything shall be mentioned in the teaming agreement or not?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something, yeah, payment terms, 30, 60, 90, however you want that or need that to be handled, that's something you should absolutely introduce and try and include in your teaming agreement. That's a really terrific question because, again, that's some of the things I've seen is how people, the back office operations and how they process invoices and how quickly they're paid, it varies. So absolutely, you're spot on. That is something you definitely would want to cover in a teaming agreement, so that it's very clear of when you submit your invoice, you're paid 30 days after, or whatever the specific terms are. That's something you would certainly want to work to negotiate in your teaming agreement.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions? Welcome to type them in the box. Let me unmute everyone. The voice. Looks like that's it, Tom.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate everybody for joining us today. And thanks again to Elizabeth and the Virginia PTAP for hosting us. Please feel free to shoot me an email, and definitely I would encourage everyone to sign up at GovBizConnect. It's free, and we really want to hear your feedback as we work to build out this capability. But again, thanks to Elizabeth and the Virginia PTAP, and again, shoot me an email and have a terrific rest of your day.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate Tom for doing the webinar for us.